We have heard some Israeli politicians being vocal in their opposition to what's going on. How unusual is it to hear that sort of criticism?
So you have these Israeli policymakers essentially enforcing a genocide just a couple of dozen kilometers west of the West Bank, and at the same time saying, oh, this is abhorrent, or we condemn this act. And again, you need to remember that these settlers are part of the Israeli system, that the Israeli government has placed them illegally in the West Bank as part of the annexation. Now, the condemnation from Israeli policymakers comes from the strategy within the Israeli military, and that is called perception shaping. And it is a policy that they enforce in order to maintain a image of being a moral army, or being a regime that values human life and values legal regulation.
I just must go back to a word that you used a moment ago. It is a fact that many international members of the international community regard these settlements as illegal, but you just used the word genocide. Is that in relation to what's happening in the West Bank? Are you really using that word?
So I'm speaking about the genocide that is happening in Gaza. Now, what is happening in Palestine, and you need to remember, Gaza is not a separate entity from Palestine, which seems to be the trend in media. Israel is enforcing spatiocide, and that includes the annexation of territory and the depopulation of villages. In the West Bank, we have witnessed an unprecedented rate of Israeli settler annexation of Palestinian lands and actual depopulation of towns and areas within the West Bank. So that does fall within the overall Israeli strategy of ethnic cleansing. And if that word makes you uncomfortable, I recommend that you go and actually see what ethnic cleansing means, because Israel has de facto implemented every part of what that phrase entails.
Well, of course,
so yes, I do place it in that same category.
Well, of course, Israel would deny that completely, and even members of the international community would challenge some of what you've just said. What is the mood? What is the anticipation, though, in the West Bank of what might happen next, and how is the temperature lowered? Just briefly, if you would.
Of course, Israel would refute that, and parts of the international community. Like I said, this is part of Israel's perception shaping strategy.
Can we move on to the question? The question. Sorry, Mariam Barghouti. My question is, what's the anticipation in the West Bank of what might happen next, and what needs to happen to bring the temperature down?
Right. So the anticipation in the West Bank is part of how you just responded to me. So Palestinians are expecting, especially international media correspondents, to devalue what is happening here and semi-legitimize it.
I didn't do that at all. I'm sorry, Mariam Barghouti, I did not do that at all. I did not do that at all. I'm asking you to tell me what the anticipation is. I'm asking you to tell me what the mood is and the anticipation is of Palestinians in the West Bank. That isn't devaluing anything that has happened at all. And we have just reported that the British Foreign Secretary has condemned the settler violence. Please answer my question.
As I said, perception shaping. You can go back to this interview and see how you devalued it. As in, for what is the situation in the West Bank, Palestinians are frightened. They are terribly frightened. You have a population that has gone rogue. This is a de facto rogue regime that has psychopathic tendencies. And at the same time, there is a disregard to the fact that Palestinians are facing this completely unprotected. While on the one hand, you're having settlers being armed with assault rifles, M16s, Israeli military is using drone warfare of the Hermes 450 specifically from Elbit systems within the UK against Palestinians. We have had nearly 700 Palestinians killed in the last 10 months. So in terms of anticipation, it hinges on what the international community will allow to persist, notwithstanding Israeli comments, notwithstanding your coverage of who condemned what, but in practice, in actual applied practice.
Mariam Barghouti, thank you very much for talking to us here on BBC News.